Today, we're heading to the continent of Africa, where we are going to talk about the great Nubian Empire, specifically Kush. Kush sits right below Kemet, or what we know today as modern-day Egypt. Nubia, like many African empires, recognized their women and allowed them to have significant control within the empire. One of their great queens was Queen Amanirenas. She reigned from 40 BC to 10 BC. She was married to King Tiridicus, and they ruled from the capital city of Meroe in Kush. Now, Kush was a very wealthy kingdom, mostly due to the fact that it had large amounts of gold deposits. But the other thing that made Kush very important and very wealthy is that it sat between Egypt and a lot of its trade partners. So it was very vital in the trade route, and that also brought in a lot of wealth to the empire. Now, the Kush Empire lived fairly peacefully with its neighbors, very rarely had any problems. That is until Rome seized power of Kemet from Cleopatra. As Rome took control, it began to move south, trying to obtain more territory. Eventually, the Romans crossed into Nubia and claimed the Isle of Philae. Now, in an attempt to intimidate the queen and king, the Romans erected a large stone tablet in Philae, which was inscribed with the achievements of the Roman Cornelius, who led that invasion into Nubia. Now, this stone tablet was dated the 16th of April, 29 BC. But in spite of the attempt, I guess I should say, of Cornelius to intimidate the Kush Empire, Queen Amanirenas did not oppose the annexation of part of her kingdom. Instead, she just sat back and watched her enemy closely and studied their moves. Now, as the Romans began imposing taxes on the Nubians in Philae and some of the other surrounding territories that they had conquered, the Nubians grew restless, angry, and they chose to ally with Kush. Now, as this occurred, the Romans continued expanding their empire, and Queen Amanirenas kept observing and studying. Now, after the death of Cornelius, Rome put another person in his place to rule over Egypt. That person was Aurelius Gallus in 26 BC. Gallus did not get to spend much time in Egypt before he was sent out on an expedition by Caesar. The expedition was to go to Arabia, and he took with him about 15,000 troops. While out on this conquest, Queen Amanirenas saw this as her opportunity to challenge Rome. So the queen and king assembled 30,000 warriors from Kush and marched into Egypt to liberate her people up north. Because keep in mind, as they continued moving on into Kush, the Romans that is, they were taking Kushites back to Egypt as slaves. So her move while he was away trying to conquer Arabia was to get back some of their territory and to bring back their people home. So the queen marched her warriors north, and they conquered cities, they took prisoners, they showed no mercy. And they were able to bring back home the Kushites who had been enslaved. And while they did that, they also destroyed the areas as they were conquering. They actually took back an entire region of about 200 square miles. So that was quite an accomplishment. Now, they also destroyed the statues of Caesar, and they carried the head of the statue of Augustus back with them to their capital city of Meroe. And once back, the queen actually took the head of Augustus and placed it at the footsteps of the entrance to the temple. So as the people entered the temple, they would walk on his head. That, of course, was an insult to the Romans, but a show of her power. But, their victory did not last long, because the Romans were not very happy about what happened, because not only did they destroy and bring their people back, they also took Roman prisoners and Egyptian captives. So Rome decided to retaliate. So they sent about 10,000 Roman troops, and a battle ensued, and the Cushite army retreated. This gave Rome more territory within Cush than they had before this battle. Unfortunately, at this point, King Tyridicus passed away. It is unsure how he lost his life, if he died of illness or in battle. The Romans say he died in battle. The Cushites state that he died of illness. So I think this is one of those propaganda things, the point of view, who's telling the story. But anyway, Queen Amanirenas became the sole ruler of Cush at this point. This gave Rome confidence, because they thought, well, hey, the king's not there, no one's ruling, so they thought that this was going to be an easy battle for them. So with confidence and arrogance, the Romans marched further into Cush, but soon they realized that they had been tricked. The Romans had marched 570 miles into Cush and was far from Semei, their headquarters. And they knew that the terrain ahead of them would be too difficult to take, so they began to retreat back. This is when Queen Amanirenas and her warriors counterattacked ferociously and pursued the retreating Romans. During one of their battles, the queen was injured by a Roman soldier and blinded in one eye. After healing, the queen returned to battle. And in 24 BC, she lost her son in battle in Dakar with the Romans. But in spite of her losses, she continued fighting. So for the next 2 years, she battled the Romans. She gathered another force of thousands of Cushite warriors and fighters in 22 BC. She and her troops marched to the Roman city of Primus, at the border of the Roman Empire of Egypt, the southern border of Egypt, right above Cush, where Cush and Egypt meet. The city of Primus is where the Roman soldiers were held up. So she marched her soldiers all of the way up to Primus, and the queen surrounded the Romans, leaving them with no way to escape. Petronius, who was now the Roman governor and ruler of overseeing Egypt at this time, was ready to end the fighting. He asked the queen to meet with Augustus, the emperor, but her warriors replied, they don't know who Caesar is. While insulting the Romans, Petronius, of course, didn't like that, but he still offered to escort the queen to meet Augustus at the Greek Isles, which is where Augustus was gathering to form more war plans, of course, for another territory and do what the Romans were doing, and that is try to take over. But the queen chose not to go. The queen felt that she is superior to the Romans, and why should she travel miles to see one person? So she sent an envoy to meet with Caesar. So in 21 BC, at the Greek Isles, the Cushite envoy met with Augustus Caesar at the Treaty of Samos. At this meeting, Augustus chose to declare that Cush would be sovereign. He gave up all claims of territory and tribute. Roman troops were to be evacuated from Cush, and they would be given back the area in the south. Now the Cushites were free, and Queen Amanirenas rebuilt her kingdom and had 11 years of peace, known as the Golden Age of Cush. Queen Amanirenas died in 10 BC, but she left a lasting legacy. And one of the most well-known things about the queen is what her message was to Caesar Augustus that she sent via her envoy. During the meeting of the Treaty of Samos, the one thing that the Cushites did give to the Romans was a bundle of golden arrows sent by the queen. And the queen also gave the emperor a message. And this is her message, and I quote, "The Kandake sends you these arrows. If you want peace, they are a token of her warmth and friendship. If you want war, you will need them." I'm sorry, but I just love this queen. That is the perfect message. Oh man. So now you know why Caesar surrendered. As always, thank you for watching, and remember to like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.